Alright, so we've got the Day of the Dead festival at my school on Thursday. And actually it's Friday of this week. So what I need to do is to continue and decorate some of these flower pots. I have some other smaller flower pots. So what I'm going to do is to use some underglaze and I'll paint these on top. In a moment you'll see that I already started on this one. I'm going to scratch away the negative spaces in between. And then we've got a couple of other things. For instance, this guy right here is called a damp box. Haven't really done a video about it, but the main idea with this box is that you can throw a lot of pottery and you just leave a bucket of water inside to have water vapor kind of collect and do its thing. But what I can do is just have these pieces of pottery ready for turning and other types of steps later in the process. So like for instance, this guy right here, I probably threw this maybe about a week ago and it's still leather hard, so I can go back and make adjustments to it. So anyways, let's jump to the next clip and I'll start working on some of the decoration. Alright, so in this first segment I've got this thing called Amico underglaze. This one's called the Velvet Underglaze Lead Free. It's the V as in Very series. This is intense yellow, so it's V391. I also have the same series, but it's a bright orange, V390. And then of course, I've got this other one, so it's an Amico underglaze. So it's not the velvet lineup, but this is also lead free. This is LUG1. So anyways, this is a solid black. So what I plan to do is to paint a couple flags and a couple flower setups just like this. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so I'm gonna start with yellow. Okay, this is a good shake. And then what I'll do is, I'm gonna get a regular brush and apply some of that onto there. Now what I plan to do is to do the decoration of the flower on 4 sides, or in the 4 corners, and then I'll have these flags going in, I guess, in little half curves, little half circle arcs that will lead up to them. I'm going to start with the yellow as a base, and then I'll put the orange on top of it, and then I'll scratch away when everything's dry, and it'll give like a reduction print type of a feel. So here's the other side of the pot. So I kind of just basically look at it from here, and then I can tell if you go across the pot to the other side, this is a good location. It's probably a couple degrees off, but it's still close enough. It's, you know, no one's gonna be measuring these pots when they're looking at them. Okay, so I got a good place to kind of pause that design. So now one of the things that I do is, you know, as I look at the pot, I can see, based on where I am, can kind of see where those 2 flowers are. So I can kind of fake it and just put in a little tiny flower there. I'm gonna make these 2 smaller than these other ones that are a lot bigger. And then I'll do the same thing again. So if this flower is right there, directly across to the opposite side of the pot is right here. And I want a little variation, so I'll make 2 of these flowers really tiny, and I'll make 2 of them a lot bigger, or maybe there'll be bunches of flowers. Okay, so I'm gonna wait for these guys to dry. So what I did off camera was just use a brush, and I just kind of cleaned, or I used some water and I cleaned off my brush. So I'm going to take some of that orange. So I'm going to give that orange a good shake, and then what I'll do is use this to apply on top. But before that does that, what I want to do is to kind of scratch away some of the material that will show up. Also, there's a little bit of iron left on the side because it made a mess. Usually when I scratch my name on the bottom, I put some iron oxide on the bottom, and then I'll remove my signature. And what that does is it leaves the pot, or my signature, the color of the pot. So when I glaze over it, it leaves a nice effect. And then the iron starts to look really dark. So all I'm doing is taking a wet sponge, just giving a nice, gentle cleaning. By the way, this pot is bone dry, so I probably threw it and trimmed it maybe a couple weeks ago. So this would be perfect for the bisque fire tonight. Okay, so looks like we're good. So I'm just gonna very randomly just cut away some designs to give it kind of the textured look as if it's some kind of a flower. I'll go back in with the orange and try to embellish, and when I put the orange on top, my goal is to leave some of the yellow and to leave some of the white over there. I'm definitely not working from a reference. This is just abstract carving. Nothing too perfect, but I just think it's gonna look nice. I've never used these underglazes, but I've seen a lot of reviews and other people use them and show a lot of results. So I'm pretty confident that they're gonna work well. The directions on the side of the glaze suggest that you put 2 to 3 coats, depending on how liberally you put or apply the material. So what I've done is a pretty hefty single coat, but I plan to glaze them very lightly because I want it to be very faint. I want to see if I can get a faint look to it. Okay, so all 4 of these guys are set up. So what I'll do now is go and take some of that orange and I'll just start to paint that on wherever I see fit. I'm gonna try to make it look as if it's some kind of a flower petal, but I'm not really too worried about it. I think this will just turn out nicely. Not too worried about making, like, you know, this is not a painting, this is a pot, so it should be something a little bit more abstract. I don't feel it needs to be representational. Okay, so you can see definitely some of the white showing through, some of the yellow showing through, and all of that orange is going to absorb. The water will absorb into the actual pot itself. So let me see if I can get that in front of the camera. Okay, so now this orange is going to be applied much more thin, or not as thick as the yellow. So I'm curious as to what this will look like. But I think it will look good because, you know, per the directions, it says you're supposed to apply multiple coats. So perhaps this orange with the yellow underneath would have much more visibility. Okay, so it looks good. And of course, here's the last one. We got a nice windy day in October, so I might not be able to fire the kiln tonight because if it's too windy, it'll be problematic. But if it dies down, I'll be able to do that. Okay, so I'm gonna set this aside just for a little bit, and I'm gonna go clean off the brush. And then now, what I'll need to do is to get some of the black. So I'll just cover this up. Imagine with something like this, it would be nice to have multiple brushes but I probably wouldn't do anything like that unless I had like a production line. If I needed to make a bunch of pots, then I'd have multiple brushes. But you know, not really trying to sell any of this stuff. I'm just doing this for fun. Okay, so let me see if I can get that in the camera. So now that I got those things set up, what I want to do is to create some kind of a line or a string. I'll drop down. So it should be good. Hopefully that's in camera. So just gonna freehand, and there we go. Got some kind of a string, and I'll put a couple flags, maybe one yellow, one orange, and I'll just do the same over here. So let me see, that looks pretty good. I'm gonna rest my hand against the pot and practice like a nice graceful swoop. And if I think I got it, I got it. You don't want to be too, you want to be intentional with the way you do these lines. You don't want to be too afraid. You don't want a sketchy, hairy line. So if I was telling my students to do any of this, I would probably tell them to practice on a separate pot. Okay, so looking good so far. This one has 4 different ropes. So I'm gonna go back to yellow, and then I'll go back to orange. I think this one will be done. Maybe I'll pause the camera and do all the rest of them. All right. So is that yellow again? So what I plan to do now is to paint in a couple of rectangles. And I'm going to go back to the first one that I started because it's dry. So that'll be good right there. Nice rectangle. Not going to worry too much about it covering any of the black underglaze. I have a suspicion that the black is going to show through anyways. So that should be okay. Not too worried about the bottom of the flag. It can be nice and textured. Okay, let's see. I do yellow, orange, orange, yellow, yellow, yellow. Those two are yellow, those two are orange, yellow, yellow, orange, orange. It's orange, orange, yeah. Or I could alternate. Yeah, I think I'll just alternate. So everyone on the right side is gonna be yellow. So I'm just gonna go and start painting in more rectangles. I'm gonna paint the rectangles in a size that will allow me to fit 2 of them. If I wanted to, I could do 3 of these flags. By the way, these are called papel picado. So I could fit 3. However, I need to go back later and scratch away negative spaces so the clay that's underneath can start to show through. So if I only put 2 flags, I think it'll do a better job of having some visual interest. All right, looking good. You know what, I think I'm gonna just go back and put in 1 more coat of the yellow, and I'll just put in a little bit of yellow on top of these flowers. Better safe than sorry, you know? Nice and random, not gonna worry too much. If it covers up some of the scratch marks that I made, it's okay. It might look different. That'll be good. And then I think I have 1 more flag that's yellow. Okay, let's go get the orange. Just follow that same process. So I'm gonna get some of that orange, right here. And just move on to the next one. So it is currently Sunday, I'm gonna say probably October 27th. Maybe it's the 26th, I'm not sure. Anyways, it's Sunday and Day of the Dead is on Friday. Yeah, my kids are screaming in the background. So anyways, looks like Day of the Dead is on Friday. So if we work backwards, what I'm gonna have to do is I need to sand these pots and polish them and get them ready on Thursday night. So if the kiln opens on Thursday, then I gotta put the glaze firing in on Wednesday. So if the glaze firing is gonna happen on Wednesday, then what I'm gonna have to do is to get these bisque fired, I guess tonight, and then that would leave me Monday, Tuesday evening to do any glaze work and any cleanup. On Wednesday night, I load the glaze kiln. Then I should have more than enough time for it to fire overnight. So that'd be Wednesday night, Thursday to fire. And then Thursday while I'm at work, the kiln will cool. And then when I get home after work, I'll be able to unload the kiln. The only problem is, like, I've never done this before. I've never used this underglaze. So I'm really hoping it does a good job and it looks nice, because if not, I'm not gonna have anything to donate. All right, so let's have a look. So here is the pot. All I gotta do is scratch away at it. It looks pretty cleaned up. One of the things I do is to scratch my name at the bottom. So I'm gonna do that. So just typing in, can you see that? Typing in O-C-K. H-A-R-T. And I put a big L. I'm gonna put a 19 right there. I put a 2019. So, one more step, but then this guy's ready to go. Okay, so here's a different one that I made a couple days ago. So I still have a couple steps in the process to make. So here's what I'll do first. I'm just gonna scratch in maybe a heart on every one of the orange. With the orange flags. Put some parallel lines. It's just a great way to reveal some of the details. And the papel picado is really pretty. There's lots of different things. Lots of different things depicted in them. So maybe over here I'm gonna just do like a flower. Or maybe some kind of a sparkle. These flags are strung up, so it's a good idea to poke holes through them, and then it won't get so damaged with the wind that's going by. But also, if you look at traditionally how they're created, you just basically use tissue paper, you fold it up and you make little cuts, kind of like a snowflake. Okay, so I've got those things set up. One more shape. Maybe I'll do like a little hat, a little sombrero. Okay. So, is that part of the hat? Let's see if that shows up. And then maybe I'll put like a couple little notches or marks right there to separate the brim from top part of the hat. Okay, top part of the hat. So obviously for this part of the video, so I'm trying to record and capture footage. What I'm not doing is wearing a respirator, but for the sake of this demo, I think I'll be okay if I make one pot like this. You're gonna do this in your home studio, if you're gonna go somewhere to a school or to like a community studio, definitely gotta wear that respirator. Just gonna put in a couple little embellishments for the rest of the hearts. I think this guy will be ready. I actually gotta put my signature on the bottom. But yeah. So make sure you stay tuned. And I wanna say, we're gonna go in tonight, then I guess tomorrow night, which would be Monday, these guys will be ready to come out of the kiln. You can see what the results look like. We'll dip these in some white glaze, clean them up on the bottom, and get them ready for that last firing. All right, thanks for watching.